Some spiritual teachers claim that all people and events are drawn into the experience through consciousness or unconsciousness, inner belief patterns, or better, through their own energetic structure, like a mirror of the inner being, so to speak. In essence, this means that everyone is consciously or unconsciously responding to what they experience themselves. What is your assessment of this? Yeah, I believe that's true. But it's not somebody's doing. So to me, the way that I know this best is through law of attraction. So you believe that you create your law of attraction and that you've got to imagine or vibrate and want money in a more clear and pure way, and then you'll get more money, for example. Whereas actually, what happens is, I'm sorry, I lost my thread there. I've completely lost my thread there. So you believe it's you that's doing law of attraction and that you're getting there, whereas actually you aren't the body. The body is something that's arising, and the body is thousands and thousands of years of conditioning and human genetics that are passed down through generation. And then when you're born, you're also then conditioned and you respond to your environment and you're molded by your environment. And dependent on how that body is wired is dependent on how their life will be. So if they feel like a really poor person, they'll most probably end up really poor, or they'll end up really rich feeling poor, which I think in some ways is worse. I've met lots of people like that as well. And what you attract into your life is dependent on your DNA structure and your conditioning, the way you respond to life and what you draw into it. So somebody that has a victim story will always produce a perpetrator. Somebody that feels poor will always attract poverty. Somebody that continuously feels unloved, they'll always attract people that don't love them enough. It's the way it is. It's the nature of this life. And I know it through the teachings of law of attraction, through Abraham Hicks. Abraham, and her name that channels Abraham is, I also know it through Course in Miracles as well, this law of attraction. Yeah. I think that you can recondition yourself to an extent. It's the way it's working. Like, we always feel that we're somebody inside the body that's dictating to the body, whereas actually the appearance of you is being dictated to by the body. So the body has a particular wiring that produces particular stories about you, and then the body moves and orientates in that way. And all of it's an organic process that's come from many millions of years of evolution. And what you'll attract and the experience you live is dependent on the way that you feel. And that's not something dependent on you. There is no you that's dependent on. You is an appearance of thoughts and feelings that move the body. Who you truly are is beingness, is presence, is love. That recognition can recondition the body to an extent, but the body is going to move dependent on how it's conditioned. And no guru, to me, I mean, not to other people, but no guru, no teacher or enlightened person or spiritual person is outside of conditioning. Everybody's body is responding to conditioning, and it's always being updated with new conditioning and genetics. Well, I think the genetics are changing too. But it's really impersonal. And when you see that impersonality, then it comes a lot easier to handle. So it seems it becomes easier to accept what your body attracts into this world. Like if you think it's really you and believe it's really you, and you're already identified with that, then it's really important to you that you're seen as successful. So then having like this feeling of poverty, that becomes unbearable for you, because you feel, I have to be a successful person, I have to look a certain way. And when you know who you truly are, then that intensity lessens from the emotions. So it's not so important to be successful. It's pleasure, but it doesn't really matter. But when you think that's really who you are, that you are someone that's either successful or a failure, and that you have to live a successful life, then it comes too intense. So the idea that you're attracting success to you by the way you feel becomes too painful to hear. Can the unconscious energetic structure be changed at will or through exercises? Yeah, I think it can, but I think we're born into this life with pretty firm roots. And, you know, the Buddhists would say that's karma. I don't like meaning that there's somebody with karma. I don't think it's someone with karma. It's just the way it happens. Like I'm a result of all my ancestors and what my ancestors have done. Just like you are as well. Like everyone is, and then our children is a result of our ancestral line. And nobody's line is better or worse. And you can see how it works. So if you've got like a father that's really abused, then if he doesn't recondition himself, more than likely abusive behaviors will come out of him. And then it will carry on through line and line. But it doesn't always have to be like that. So this one's really abused, and then the father abuses the child, and then the child swears, I'm never going to abuse my child, and then becomes maybe too weak a father. And then the child dominates the father and has no respect for the father, etc. It's like a line. And there isn't a more enlightened line. You can't go to like the Queen's line and be like, oh, this family line, this heritage is more enlightened than this one. This one's more enlightened than that one. Or this one's better than that one. There is no better than. All of us have been conditioned by society, and our genetics are a product of that. And we've all got similar conditioning and traits. But in this life, you can recondition it to an extent. Like I've certainly changed my behavior. When I was younger, I used to have a bad temper. I was brought up, my dad had a temper, and then I learned to deal with things by shouting. You know, like when my boundaries were crossed, I shouted. And it was often actually I was brought up, so not asserting my boundaries, not asserting my boundaries, not asserting my boundaries, and then finally asserting them and then shouting at everyone because of it. And that really shifted over the years. I really worked on that, and I really understood the source of it, and I just understood how detrimental it was to me. Sorry, I can't say that word suddenly. So I really realized how much it hurt me, because even if I was right, if people were acting inappropriately, once you've lost your temper with people, you become the abuser. So it outshadows anything else that's happened in the situation. You totally lose. I mean, I really saw the depth of it when I connected it to my dad, when I connected it to vulnerability, when I connected it to fear, when I connected it to not establishing good enough boundaries, which is still something I work on. Then that really began to shift. And now, over the last 10 years, I would say I've lost my temper with people no more than I don't know, but it must be between 10 and 20, no more than that, if that. Like maybe once, if that, a year, and maybe sometimes more. And then it depends, like there's been mild losing the temper, you know, when you get annoyed with something, but then I'm not really losing my temper, there's just annoyance coming out. I mean losing a temper when you're like, F you and blah, 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 blah. To some people that might seem really shocking because they weren't brought up with screaming, but I was brought up with it, so it was never that big a deal shouting. It was like normal. So yeah, there'll be some people out there like, you what? And then some people, they also were brought up with shouting. If everything is predetermined, then there is no decision maker or conscious decision. Everything happens easily. Everything happens as it happens, easily or hard, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so you reconditioning yourself is something that's predetermined. So that's something that will either happen or not happen. It's not predetermined as if there's somebody back in time planning it. It's, when I say predetermined, I mean it's something that happens. It's something that there couldn't be any other way. Like whatever I say now, I couldn't say anything else. Our mind tells us we could, so our mind gives us that feeling of free will that we can choose things and we can go in different directions. But actually there is only one direction in which it can go into. What are you trying to get out of? Guilt or blame? Like you feel guilty for things you haven't done? Or you feel blame for things that people have done to you? Or you feel shame? Like what is because often when those questions are asked, it's like something that we feel ashamed about or bad about that we've done in our life. Like everyone is innocent. Everyone, no matter what they do. Like it's your karma, but it's not personal. It couldn't be any other way. That doesn't mean that it's okay for you or me to stand and shout and be abusive to one another or hit or fight or do all those sorts of things, but it's kind of a different subject. Like on the ultimate level, who you are, it's all happening spontaneously like a dream at night, and it's not your fault anything that happened or didn't happen. You're exactly as you're meant to be in this current life form. You're perfection. Everybody. Absolutely everybody. In everything they do.